Democratic Congressman Peter Welch of Vermont is Chief Deputy Whip. He attended that meeting. Do we have that right? The president said no more extensions of the Bush-era tax cuts?
Well, he did. That is correct. But what he also said is two things that I think should be of some comfort to all of us, Republicans and Democrats. Number one, we've got to raise our debt ceiling. Number two, he's engaged in active negotiations about a long-term deficit resolution. So he fully appreciates that this deficit is something that families experience as a burden on them. So his view is that in order to get to where we need to be, fiscal balance, we're going to have revenues as well as cuts. Everything has to be on the table. And I think everybody knows when they really acknowledge the obvious that that's what we're going to have to do to be successful. And we can be.
A lot of Republicans argue that a recession is not the time to be raising taxes on anybody.
Well, that's the argument, but you know, some people have not experienced, some people have done extremely well even in this recession. Most people haven't. I mean, unemployment's high and wages have been stagnant. Gas and food have been increasing significantly in expense, but the top 1 or 2% folks in the financial community, they've really been doing extremely well. So the recession has passed them by, and good for them. But they can help out and do their share to restore fiscal balance, because that debt is something that's an overhang eventually on everybody, every business, and it's got to be dealt with.
What about the argument that you hear from the Republican side of the aisle primarily that the president has not led enough when it comes to the economy and budgeting, that he is leaving things to the legislature to fight out?
Well, you know, that's a little bit of he said, she said that doesn't really get us anywhere. I think the Republicans and Democrats are going to have to work together if we're going to be successful. And the emphasis from the Republicans is on spending, and they've got a point. There needs to be cuts, but that includes in the Pentagon. The Democrats point out that we also have to have revenues, tax expenditures. You know, should we be giving tax breaks to very profitable industries when they're doing extremely well, like the oil industry? So I think there's some truth on both sides, and rather than do the finger pointing, let's sit down and take the best ideas on both sides and make progress.
What about a simplification of the tax code? Does that ever come up?
It comes up a lot, and I think there's broad bipartisan support for tax simplification. As you remember, the last time we did that was Bill Bradley and President Reagan, and we had a simplified code, the rates went down, you get rid of exemptions. So I think in the long term we should do that. That's a good idea. There's a lot of debate about, actually we're so caught up in the battle about the budget in the debt ceiling that's not actively in consideration at the moment as part of this package, but it's something that the Ways and Means Committee is working on.
If the president does draw this line in the sand that we've talked about, the idea that he would not agree to any extension of the Bush-era tax cuts, on what other points might he be willing to give? I mean, you're talking about compromise. Republicans aren't going to like that. What would the president be willing to compromise on?
Well, keep in mind, the Bush-era tax cuts at the top 2% means that 98% of the people will continue to get the tax cuts. So that's a pretty good compromise. And this, I don't think, should be seen so much as an ideological battle to be won as a practical problem to be solved. And the cost of extending that top 2% is $700 billion over 10 years. Now, where the president is working with I think is willing to work, is to try to bring down the cost of health care. That affects Medicare, but it affects employer-based delivery of health care, private pay health care. And I think he's also willing and he's indicated this, willing to reduce spending in some of the Democratic programs that have traditionally had broad support among the Democrats. And a lot of Democrats don't like to hear that, but the president certainly has indicated that he's willing to have that be on the table as well.
Peter Welch is a congressman from Vermont, the Chief Deputy Whip. Thank you.
Thank you.
Well, Republicans are hoping to spark a political revival. Their plan to turn the evangelical political movement into the forceful voting group it